Thank you, thank you. So I'm very happy to see you all again. And some of them I think I see you today very first time. And however, it's very joyful to meet you again. And so thank you very much, Pepe, to give me a chance to talk about the book a little bit, and then later some books need to be signed, I think. I think if you read this book, you will know the history or development, how it became. So therefore, I don't need to talk that much, and please read it. Otherwise, if I tell you everything, you wouldn't read it. So then this is also maybe not good. So, and however, just a few points that I can explain is this kind of approach or setting up is quite different, because Dalai Lama wished me, number one, I should write according to his teachings on fifth Dalai Lama's Lam Rim, some sort of commentary. That's absolutely all right, no problem, because the Lam Rim structure is fixed. There are some different kind of orders. Most, not all, but most of Gelupa Lamrims start with firstly they explained disciple, masters, and then precious human life, and so on and so forth. But another elderly and from the other Buddhist traditions, such as Nyingmapa, such as Gagyab, and such as Satyapa, they have slightly different orders. Some of them start with Buddha nature. Some of them I don't remember anything. I don't remember, so it's not necessary to explain all these differences. So therefore, however, we have a structure. But His Holiness wished me to write very extensive introductory explanation. Of course, everything is from his teaching, from his talks, from his question and answers, and he was very much encouraged me to do so, to write so. And he says that you know me very well, and you know my teachings, and you have this knowledge, and you are the right person to write for me this. This instruction has taken place just immediately before his departure. Before his departure, that was in Brussels, and I have no time to discuss with him. I had no time to ask him what he really thinks, and how long should it be, and how fast that I need to write, and so on and so forth. And I only had the time to say yes. That was for me, because he just already he put on his shoes already, and just immediately after next minute going out. So therefore, I can't hold him back. So anyway, that was my big, how should I say? It may not be mistake, but it's I had to accept his order, his wish to fulfill his wish. So then, after I returned to Germany, I just think very carefully. The burden is introduction to Buddhism. Which subject, which order? There's no order at all. So therefore, I must find the order. So that was for me very difficult. I had a lot of material from written and oral transmission, or even including small cutting from newspapers. I read regularly Tibetan newspapers. There I can find many Dalai Lama's talks. Instead, I find a small sentence which is very important. Then I take it out. So, but my problem is still there. Where could I put this? There's no framework. So therefore, I need to find. I need to bustle. I need to produce new system. So it gives me such a burden. But maybe it's a very nice burden, because through this writing, I learned also quite a lot, and also my Tibetan became even better than before, because I need to write very nicely way. I want to write. If someone read his book, these readers need to be seeing the Dalai Lama, hearing the Dalai Lama. Just one example. Once I was here in Singapore, and I had terrible jet lag, and then in the night, many nights, I couldn't sleep. Then I had a book of His Holiness on secular ethics. Of course, he spoke in Tibetan, but that was the book was English translated into Tibetan, back into Tibetan. Someone, but his Tibetan is, if I may say, terrible. I mean, language was all right, but I can't see Dalai Lama while I'm reading. So therefore, there's no flavor of Dalai Lama's mind, Dalai Lama's way to speaking, Dalai Lama's idea. I can't see it. Of course, meaning is correct, but the way to write is, I didn't like that. So, however, back to my subject, and I always try to. Actually, the way of Dalai Lama's talk is really, you don't need too much change, because he speak. If you write according to his talks, you may print it. You may able to print it. His Tibetan's fantastic, and he wouldn't that much repeat it, and the flow is very good, very nice. So therefore, thank Buddha. For me, it's from that part of it, it's very easy, but still my problem is there, this structure. So then somehow I must make it. I need to make a decision. And then I did that, and I consulted with him, and especially with also Geshe Tuden Jimba, according to Dalai Lama's wish, that I need to talk to him. And he was in Switzerland, and I went to Switzerland to met him and discussed with him, and he gave wonderful suggestions and many changes, of course. And all, I think I met Dalai Lama because of the book 6 times, I think. And at the beginning, as soon as I got this order, I went to Varanasi, during one of his teaching, and I asked him, I have 8 questions. If you allow me to accept all these 8 questions, then I can try to write for you. Otherwise, I can't accept it. I don't remember all my 8 questions. So one of the question is that the Lam Rim need to be modern form, modern approach. Modern approach in the sense of of course, the theme need to be stay, but approach or explanation need to be up to date. And then if you, because there are so many Lam Rims, if you don't accept this, then I don't want to write it because there's enough other Lam Rims. So he accepted that and many other things, whatever I requested and asked him, he agreed. So that was the best fundamental position for this book. And then, while I'm writing, I had also some problem with the subject. I can consult with my friend, Dagyab Rinpoche. He was at that time maybe still in the head of the government, exile government, I think. So never mind. But he paid such great attention, and supported me, and that was also very, very helpful. So at the end, I went to Dharamsala, and we had a meeting with Dalai Lama and some other assistants, including some Rinpoche. And then Dalai Lama gave me okay to print out. And then Rinpoche myself went to his private residence, very down there. It's quite far from the Dharamsala. It's very isolated, very, very nice place. Very nice place, very quiet. And we worked 17 days from morning till evening. Only interruption with lunch and some teas, but otherwise without any other discussion or talking about, and no chattings. Only concentrate on this book. I read from top to or complete. I read that, and then he also gave me several suggestions. And then in the evening, all these things changes, put it into my computer, and the next morning I just explain the way I wrote, and he agreed, and so on. So he was the most helpful. So through this way, I'll be able to finish this book. And another problem is the type of publication. Dalai Lama is Dalai Lama. He concentrated on the subject, but not technical things. Not technical things. And he said, according to his wish, I should start with Lam Rim, and maybe after 5% of the Lam Rim, all this general introduction, put that part, and at the end, then it continues to go to Lam Rim. I said that wouldn't work, because people need So, now I started London, and suddenly I just go in the other country, more or less. And it's difficult to go back. This is the one point, one main point. Second point is also main. And he would like to, this book, make it one book. That's not very handy. It's very difficult to carry always in one book, but to read is not comfortable. So therefore, I said that wouldn't work. And I insisted him to put into two books, 2 volumes. He insisted me, no, in one book. So then at the end, I know him good enough. So therefore, discussion is useless. Discussion is useless. Just as I said, just okay. Then I did whatever I would like to do. That's not because my own ego, but sometimes sees also that problem. When I start London, so I need to go smoothly London, only London, not certain different subjects for long, for over 500 books, 500 pages, but in between. That's difficult. So that was one more or less problem. The second problem is, at the beginning, in Brussels, he says, this book should be 14th Dalai Lama's Lam Rim. Of course, it's understandable that the author will be 14th Dalai Lama. But later, his mind changed. I should be the author. I should be the author. I said, no way. You must be the author. And at the beginning, you said like this and so. Well, he said no. And then, as I mentioned earlier, discussion is not very fruitful. And then, what I did is accumulation of Dalai Lama's word. I, as editor, so not a co-author, but I just be regarded as a editor. And then he was also, maybe he didn't pay exactly attention or whatever. Maybe he couldn't remember what he said before. So anyway, so it's become like this. So therefore, it was not very easy go through all these procedures, both technical things and contents and subjects, right? So anyway, that's this. And now I would like to explain you. I would like to explain just a few things. If someone asks me whether all these contents are really from Dalai Lama's, came from Dalai Lama's mouth or not, my answer is yes. But some explanation needed. Some explanation. For example, in the 4th chapter, under the whole 4th chapter, I put 2 things. One is a traditional way of universal, according to Buddhist idea. How, as we know, the Sumer mountain and 4 continents and 8 subcontinents and all these things. And the Dalai Lama is very much against about this idea, which is traditional. This traditional way of explain is, of course, it's according to Abhisamaya Alankara. Once I have a very, I found very interesting to watch. During the meeting, Dalai Lama with several scholars in Varanasi, that was also Varanasi. And the principal of Varanasi said, there's another text, actually almost same as the Abhidhammakosha, but except the capital number 3 or 4, number 3, which is explanation of the universal. It's missed. Immediately said, oh, that is perfect. Without this kind of explanation, or excluded. So therefore, I thought it's good to mention about this. And I also thought it's very important to ask elder Tibetan readers to explain how is it universal in the from Western science. Of course, I don't know anything about Western science explanations, but I have one of my students. He's very good about this, and he did some research, and he delivered me some small chapter according to Western science, right? So I put this. This capital exists only in Tibetan publication. In English, I don't think excluded, so far as I know, because our translator, English translator, Gaden Kilty, an English gentleman, elderly, and he's very, very knowledgeable, and he speaks fantastic Tibetan. He translated so many books. Only he said, this is not necessary for the English reader. So I agreed to exclude. By the way, Gaden Kilty, he went to Dharamsala early 70s, I think. Now he's 74 years old. Early 70s, and then studied many years, 8 long of Buddhist philosophy, 8 years long Buddhist philosophy, and received so many teachings from Dalai Lama and others as well. And he lived so many years in Dharamsala. Still here, he and his wife got a flat. So I visited at this time, and very cozy, very nice. And anyway, he contacted me to discuss some Tibetan Tibetan language-wise that he couldn't understand. He said, before I started to translate your book, he heard from some other Tibetans. Dagyab Rinpoche's Tibetan is very high. It can be difficult for you. And later says that's true, because I want to keep Tibetan, the way of writing the Tibetan, very high level. Although it's based not on the written language, but slightly some good touch with the spoken language, because Dalai Lama speaks, and many people written, however, whatever the way he speaking, put into Tibetan language in the book. So therefore, sometimes this is too much slang, too much speaking language. Grammatical need to be correct. And because this book is Dalai Lama's book, not my book. So therefore, if I write in bad Tibetan language, so that will be very shameful, and I have a big responsible. So anyway, Gavin Kilkey, we had almost weekly Zoom communication, and every time 1 or 2 hours to exchange. And he also said that I made some mistakes about dates. So I'm very sorry about that, because during my time to write, I wasn't careful enough. So therefore, I just wrote according to my sources. So therefore, this is not my fantasy, but the source mentioned, the source gives wrong dates. So therefore, he just corrected all these things. So this was the number one that I want to tell you. The number two is in the chapter number 6, I think. Yes, that's right. According to the development of Buddhism, a Pali tradition and Sanskrit tradition and Tibetan traditions about this. And within this chapter, I mentioned, within this chapter, Dalai Lama mentioned only we had a very close connect with Mongolia, and so many Mongolian both the ordained and lay persons coming to see me, Dharamsala, to Dalai Lama. And we also had and have good contact with Jizun Tamba Hutoto, who is the head Lama of Mongolia. So that was basic explanation of Dalai Lama. So I found this is too short. So from that, then I explained all Kaka Jizun Tamba's reincarnation. The last one was number 9. So all these short stories, where he was born, what kind of communication or connection between Tibetan government and Mongol government, and Dalai Lama and Jizun Tamba. Among the Jizun Tamba, the Mongolian head of Mongolian, not only Buddhist, but just like Dalai Lama for Tibet, Jizun Tamba is for Mongolian. I think except one, all other Jizun Tambas was born in Tibet. Some of them related with either Dalai Lama or Panchen Rinpoche. So that means it shows that Jizun Tamba Hutoto and Tibetan spiritual leaders had very strong link. And then I also added how many times the from Mongolian, there are 5 different territories in current situation, to visit Dalai Lama, receive teachings, and so on, and then sent so many Mongolian students in Sarajevo, Gaden, and the numbers of this, and how many Buddhist monasteries in Mongolia developed after the end of the communist regime of Soviet Union. They become independent. So all these details, I thought it's important to put it in this book. So, of course, automatically, understand, Dalai Lama couldn't give such a detailed numbers, how many monks and how many monasteries and in which year how many persons come to see him, to receive teaching him, and who was the leader and so on and so forth, right? So this I included. That was in number chapter 6. And then also Dalai Lama mentioned about Pen religions, because Pen religion is the ancient Tibetan religion. So this is number 6 from the chapter number 6. Chapter 6, number 6. That's also very important to know about Pen religion, to explain about Pen religion a little bit. So I did that. Dalai Lama said the Pen is very important, our ancient so-called mother religion of Tibet. And then I just explained a little bit. And the connection between Pen religion to Buddhist religion, and how was it developed in Tibet, and so on and so forth. These are some differences, but basically, I can say proudly, this is Dalai Lama's idea. And then, in the last chapter, number 8, chapter 8, about the female Buddhist teachers. Female Buddhist teachers. Dalai Lama emphasized very much. And just for example, during one of our talks in Dharamsala, he asked his attendant to bring the biography of late or recent very good practitioner and a female practitioner. And then he gave such a book, thick one. And Dalai Lama gave me here, this is very important. You need to put it. How can I put a whole book in his book? That's not possible. And suddenly just say only for about her, but nothing else. That is not good. So therefore, thank Buddha, I have my book collection. There's one small booklet. It's complete about the Buddhist female, not only Buddhist, but a female person who was a very, very strong, very active, both politic and religion. So from them, I took 125 females biography. I put it, including Dalai Lama's favorite, that one. But Dalai Lama's favorite cannot make such a big chapter. I need to take care about how should I don't know in English, but they need to be equally. So these are the difference from the volume number 1. And volume number 2, Lam Rim is a Lam Rim. But the interesting part is, except some biographies of the first Dalai Lama, second Dalai Lama, third Dalai Lama, fourth and fifth Dalai Lama's biography. That was, of course, for me, because it is important to say the authorship about for the fifth Dalai Lama. And therefore, it is also necessary to put some others, such as fourth and third and second and so on and so forth. Uh, there's some other reason. Because the fourth Dalai Lama was Mongolian. He was born in Mongolia. Third Dalai Lama went into the Mongolian. His activities extremely developed in Mongolia. So therefore, it is also necessary to know. So therefore, I put all these from first till fifth Dalai Lama's biography. This is not from Dalai Lama's, but it's very strongly connected. And then in the disciples and masters subject, I put some. I took some old sources. So-called the book is so-called Manikambum, book of Manipe Meho. It's composed by the Tibetan king 33rd, which is in the 7th century. So I found very interesting way to explain. It's very in detail. So I never heard some of them. I never heard up to now. So therefore, I thought it's also important and interesting. And I took some from there to edit. And then, in the part of hell beings, Dalai Lama said, there are many different explanation or description of hell beings in general, not only in Buddhism, but on other religions. That was his word. And from that sentence, I put several themes. How explain in Greek culture? How explain the other Arabic culture, Hindu culture? All these some summaries, I put it that. These are not, of course, not from Dalai Lama's words, but Dalai Lama mentioned there are several differences need to understand. That our current explanation about hell beings not typical Buddhist explanation. That's the main message. And then Dalai Lama emphasized the hell beings that we explain is not really, cannot really understand. There is some place that we can say, that we can make a pin down. In the text, in traditional Buddhist text, they mentioned up to in distance of certain miles, there will be hell being this, and after that, hell being that, and so on and so on. About this subject, I wrote 300 verses recently, and there I put it more in details. I did some compare. According to Buddhist distance, the hell being, the hell state need to be under Buddhagaya. And the distance is so and so kilometers. From this kilometer, if I put into the size of universal, this global, they get through South America's sea out, and they hang somewhere in the air. Because this distance cannot be cannot be, how should I say, function properly. So that means at that time, during ancient time, no one thinking if there's no one possible to make to measure exactly. So everything is almost approximately. So therefore, I tried to pin down a little bit, and it made it also very clear. There was sense of a Tibetan way and a scientist way, and what will be like that. And the main thing Dalai Lama said, the helping can only be existed according to one's own karma. It's not possible there's one localized area that all people all beings can join them if they have had very bad deeds. So this cannot be. He said. So therefore, because that I just explained from the other cultures, ideas, put in that. So these are the actually main, how should I say, differences or not. If I may summarize about this book, especially Lam Rim, also in introduction, Dalai Lama is very much emphasized to one's own mental development. If I may make short, how can we become good human being? That's his message, and he emphasized very much with common sense and the explanation of the literature. And the common sense is the most important, and so-called